What's up, NHL fans? Hope you had a great weekend watching playoff hockey nonstop, both all day Saturday and Sunday. The scheduling was unbelievable, I thought, on Saturday. Yesterday, the times, we can give our little criticism about the time starts yesterday.
I don't think it's a little criticism. I think it's a reasonable criticism yesterday.
We'll get into it. This is Morning Cup of Hockey. That's Colby Cohen, who's already, upbeat, ready to go. I'm feeling good. It's like 80 degrees out. I'm Jonny Lazarus. We are presented by Betway. If you're going to place a bet on Betway. Please play responsibly. And remember, you must be 19 years of age or older. You're ready to fire off, Colby. So what do you think? Yesterday's schedule, too late for you? Connor McDavid at 10:30 at night on a Sunday doesn't keep you up all night?
Well, first off, I like how the chat's already going. We've not even gotten a minute into the show. Give Chef Richard a little bit of love. He popped in just to say hello, and he's got some medical stuff going on today, so he said he's going to listen later. So we'll wish him well at his appointments. But yesterday was annoying.
Did you see Diggy's comment, Colby?
Not yet.
I realized over the weekend, if you have a few beers and squint your eyes, Colby looks like Sebastian Aho.
Listen, Biggie, I'm happy that you're thinking about me on the weekend.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
I'm sure it's when you're throwing darts at your dartboard. I'm good for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was annoyed yesterday because what are we doing as a league when you've got the best player in the world, really with your only opportunity to play him early in the day?
Yeah.
And instead you put him on at 10:30 Eastern when you could have pushed everything up. Games could have started at noon yesterday. Why not put them on at noon? Okay, and I understand. All right, maybe you don't give them the noon game because they're out west. Okay,
yeah, it'd be 9 a.m. LA time.
Maybe you give them the 2 game, the 5. But if you start at noon, you could do noon, you could do 2:30, you could do 5:30, and you could do 8. And that way, if you want to watch the best player in the world and you're like, I don't know, 12 or 13 years old, and you got to go to bed at 10 o'clock, you get an opportunity to do so. And TNT has TNT, TBS, and True TV. They've got 3 different networks that they're working with now. So, I don't understand what could be the reason for that. I really don't. It makes absolutely no sense to me. I'm sure they have their reasons. And I know people are quick to blame Gary Bettman. It's not necessarily Gary Bettman. It's the TV. It's the networks figuring out the slots and ratings and this and that.
I think there was NBA on throughout the day also on TNT.
But again, you've got TBS and True TV.
Yeah.
Like, you have other networks for flexibility. And if you have that issue, give one of the games to ESPN on Sunday. They do this. So I don't know. Like, of course, it's great to not have overlap other than a few minutes of each game. But it just makes no sense to me that on a Sunday, it's not like you're going up against the NFL. It's not like you're going up against some big, major golf tournament. You're not. Why would you not start at noon?
Yeah.
Give people an opportunity to go get some drinks at brunch, get a little liquored up early in the day, and then go to a bar or get around your TV for noon. I don't know. Like, what's the difference between starting at noon and 2:30? You tell me. What's the difference?
I mean, I don't really have an answer for that one, to be honest. The West Coast is the only thing I would say is a difference because, 2:30 in the West Coast, still an 11:30 start time. If you're LA, Edmonton, it's 11:30 start time is pretty rough. Local time, I don't know. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, it would have been hard. I mean, after I said that and I thought about the time change, like, I understand that. But again, he plays out in the West. His games are going to continue to be in Western time zones. So all during the week, he's playing at 9 or 10 o'clock at night Eastern or 10:30 Eastern. So there's just such a massive part of the United States and the NHL fan base that just doesn't get a chance to see him play. Listen, I'm an adult. I make a decision to go to bed early. Okay. So, like, I'm not even talking so much about me, but what about the 8 to
it's kids.
The 8 to 14-year-old demographic that's got to go to bed at 9:30 to get up for school today? We're not even giving them a chance to see the best player in the world. Like, McDavid is worth watching, even if you're not a hockey fan. I think he'll catch the eyes of the casual hockey fan. And not all the series have been that great and that entertaining. I mean, they haven't been super
Well,
close.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think even though, and we'll get into it, we got a lot of different series to talk about. We're going to talk about at least try to get to all of them today. I think there's something to be said in every single first round series, whether you think they're boring or not. There's still storylines in all of them. And I know there's a lot of 3-1. There were some 3-0. The Rangers complete the sweep last night. That one is done. Only team in the second round. Got to get that brag in there. But I still think there's something to find in almost every matchup that we have here in the first round. Like, what do you get in the chat?
So RL3 Tendy, who I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure I'm used to seeing that name in our chat. So
I see that name on Twitter all the time. I think big Ranger fan.
Okay, so it's good to see you there. RL3 Trendy said, "I'm an adult," is what I say to myself every morning when I look in the mirror. He's making fun of me for my "I'm an adult" comment, which is warranted. And look, I know people are probably sitting there going, "Oh, Colby's being grumpy about something again," or "What does Colby have a problem with now?" I don't know. Like, I feel like I'm speaking for the fan. I actually, yes, this is also coming from a selfish place. I'll be honest. Yeah. But I also feel like I have the fan in mind with this gripe. I feel like I'm saying what everyone else is thinking.
Yeah. And Weinberg 85 said the NFL starts at 1 p.m. every Sunday, and they seem to be okay.
And
but
Fox and
the West Coast games start at 4. The West Coast games start at 4.
And ESPN's coverage starts at like 9 a.m. for NFL Live. It just I just think that why not move everything forward? You just have a way more captive audience. And I understand the West Coast matters too. But again, you're just the West Coast always gets to see him during the year at 7 or 8 o'clock at night. You just aren't ever really giving the East Coast a chance to see Connor McDavid.
Yeah.
I
think
it's
a good point. It's a good point.
A problem.
It's a good point. And I do want to shout out the TNT crew for their awesome coverage this weekend. I think I just saw they did 24 hours of NHL playoff coverage, which is unbelievable over the weekend. But Colby, let's talk some hockey because I think we've gone a little bit off the rails here to start. Let's go right to Toronto and Boston because that was the big conversation over the weekend. Everyone's trying to read Willie Nylander's lips. You sent that to me right away, that clip on the bench and to Vic, and we were kind of dissecting it, going over it. And, our takeaway is that people yell on the bench all the time. This is a common thing in hockey. Why is this specifically a big deal? And it's because, like we said this morning, we're not used to seeing these guys go at it with each other, right? Like, you don't really see Matthews, Nylander, Marner going at one another. It's kind of the first time we're seeing it. And I think that's why this story has somewhat blown up. And again, you have 2 days in between games. So Boston and Toronto don't even play until tomorrow night. After the game, Marner said it's normal. We're not that frustrated, blah, blah, blah. Sheldon Keefe, I don't see any frustration. But from the fans' perspective, what the fuck is going on in Toronto here? Because we're now in year 8 of this core, if you want to call it the core, which is the core 4. And there is no solution year in, year out. So you're looking at this situation. They're down 3-1 going back to Boston. Brad Marchand's taunting the bench in game 3, saying it's over in 5. Like, what is the morale like in Toronto right now? And I think I saw they've lost now 6 straight playoff home games too, which doesn't help the case at all.
Well, look, I think the easy thing to do here with this series is, well, actually, let me just address the video on the bench first. That's every day of being on an NHL team, an AHL team, a college team, a junior team. Guys lean on each other. I see it when I'm down and practicing with the Titans junior team. When guys don't make a play in practice, when they're working on something, guys get pissed at each other. Guys lean on each other. You're holding other players accountable. I think obviously the camera catches this, and then I think the reaction from Marner where he throws his glove is probably what makes everybody realize and makes their antennas go off. But chirping at each other and pissing each other off or calling each other out on the bench, it's totally normal. And you know what? Marner scored a nice goal after that. I mean, it was probably the best play the best play he made in the entire series. Moved his feet, held onto the puck, protected it. it puts them at least on the board in a game where they had absolutely no life. I mean, that's big time skill right there. So, you can say what you want about the altercation, but then he turned around and he at least answered for it on, I don't know if it was the next shift or a couple of shifts later when that happened. But look, it's a problem because it's Toronto. It's a problem because they're having another meltdown. But here's the biggest thing for me. I don't want to hear that the Toronto Maple Leafs have a problem defensively or that the Toronto Maple Leafs don't have good enough goaltending. Sure, has Boston been better defensively? Yeah, they're a better team. Has Boston had better goaltending? Well, yeah, they have better goaltenders, right? So point at the GM or Shanahan for those. The reality of this series, Toronto can't score.
Yeah.
They can't score goals. Their power play is a joke. Boston has more power play goals in the series than Toronto has even strength. And they continue to take penalties, and their penalty kill's been terrible. Okay. So, I just don't want to hear that, oh, they don't have the physicality. They do have the physicality. They do have, guys defending hard. I like the way Joel Edmondson has played in this series. Sure, Samsonov has been okay. Like, he hasn't been great, but he hasn't been horrifyingly bad either.
Just a quick note on your power play comment. Toronto's 1 for 14 on the power play in the series. They were 0 for 8 in games 3 and 4 on home ice. Like, that's the difference maker, right? I mean, we talk about, and not to bring any other series into this, but that's the difference with Edmonton. That's the difference with the Rangers. In games that they're not playing their best, their power play comes through and scores goals. Like Edmonton last night didn't deserve to win at all. Their one goal in the game, power play goal. And Toronto's power play, who has a ton of weapons on it, if they're not scoring, guess what? They're fucked. Like, you need good special teams and you need good goaltending in the playoffs. And they're not. I don't want to say Samsonov's not playing well enough to win them games, because I think he is.
Well, he's not winning them games.
No.
He's just
he's playing well enough to win them a game.
Turning in low B efforts. Like, you're getting B- goaltending from him.
But if it wasn't against Jeremy Swayman,
but you're still getting B- goaltending. And look, it's funny. Like, Henrik Lundqvist said this on TNT over the weekend, and I'm hard on goaltending in the playoffs. I think you sometimes are like, I don't agree with you. That's not a soft goal. And so here's what I'm going to say. Henrik Lundqvist said that I think is the best way to verbalize it. You just got to make that extra 1 or 2 saves in a playoff game. If that's who you want to, if you want to be a playoff performing goalie, there's 2 or 3 during a game that you got to come up with. Yeah. And that's the difference for Samsonov right now. He's not coming up with those few extra saves. You could say the same thing about Varlamov, who's had a good playoff, but he just isn't coming up with the 1 or 2 extras that they need to win, right? Doesn't mean he's not losing them games. He's not winning them games. He's giving you solid goaltending, but he's not giving you what Jeremy Swayman does. Jeremy Swayman, he comes up with that 2 or 3 extra saves every game, and you see one end, there's a chance. Okay, it's happened in the Colorado series, Winnipeg series, more than any other series. Georgiev makes a save, and then Colorado goes down and scores, and Hellebuyck doesn't come up with a save, and that's the momentum swing. That's the difference. That's what Lundqvist is talking about. That's the one extra save, and that's where, when I said the goal that I didn't like that Skinner let in the other night, that Kempe goal, I said, look, is it a bad goal? No, it's not a bad goal. But if you're going to win a Stanley Cup, I need you to save that. Like, I watched Tim Thomas do it for our team for 4 rounds. He saved puck after puck that he had no business stopping, and that was the difference in the playoffs, right? It stopped the bleeding. It changed momentum. They're blitzing. They get offensive opportunities, and then all of a sudden he erases them, and you go down and get a bounce and get a goal, and now all of a sudden you should be down, but you're up. And when that compounds over the course of a playoff series like Swayman is doing, that makes all the difference in the world. But let me just say this. The core 4's got to score. You all make $10+ million. I know Nylander's hasn't kicked in yet, but let's call it what it is. He's an $11.5 million player. Okay,
I think Marchand has as many points as the 4 of them combined.
Marshy's, running roughshod over those guys, having a great playoff, and those guys aren't scoring goals. And you know what it is? I just don't see the extra, like, they're not going to another level of, and I'm not going to say effort. I think, listen, everybody tries. This whole you don't try thing is stupid. Come on, everybody's trying. But where you have to go and what you have to sacrifice to get to the next level of playoffs, none of the core four is doing right now. It's unfair to lump Nylander in because he's just played the one game. Okay. And I know everybody already says he's got a reputation for being a dog. Well, let's see. We'll see over the next, 2 games, if there even is 2 more games of this series, if he is truly a dog. But to me, it's not the goaltending and the defense. It's the penalty kill, and it's the lack of scoring from the big boys and really from the whole lineup.
And, I'm a storyline guy. So here's like the last thing I want to say about this series right now. To me, there's 2 different storylines, right? Like the Bruins in the same position last year, up 3-1. They let it go. They lose to Florida. Game 5 was a pivotal game 5. They lost in overtime. Florida comes back from down 3-1 in the series, wins it in 7. Boston needs to learn from that experience last year and close this thing out in 5, right? Like that's the Boston side of the storyline. That's kind of what I'm going with. I don't know if you agree with that quickly or if you're even listening.
I mean, of course I'm listening to what you're talking about. I'm catching up in the chat, but sure. I think that's a reasonable storyline for the media to talk about.
But then on the flip side, I think Toronto's, all this playoff struggle, it started with that 3-1 series lead, that 4-1 game 7 lead in Boston. They let it slip away. Boston scores 2 goals in the last 2 minutes. Bergeron scores in overtime. And then from that moment, Toronto's playoff storyline has always been they're going to blow it. So if Toronto is going to go on a cup run, how much better could it be if they start with exercising that demon of coming back from down 3-1, the flip side against Boston and winning this series?
Let me ask you a question.
If you're a Leafs fan, that's something.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Go back to that Boston team. Okay. Name 3 or 4 players from that team.
Bergeron, Marchand, Krejci, Lucic, Chara.
Okay.
Rask.
You don't have to name anymore. Think of the character in those guys. Think of the fact that they had just won in 2011. Do you really look at the Toronto roster?
No.
I'm just asking the question. Do you think they have it in them to do that?
No, I don't. I'm saying, I'm fencing this one. I'm saying if I'm a Toronto fan, that's kind of what I'm leaning on. Like if we do this.
Well, if you're a Toronto fan and you're leaning on that, well, you're just setting yourself up to smash your TV because
Toronto was down 3-1 in that series. I thought it was the opposite. Toronto was down 3-1 in that series. I thought they were up 3-1 in that series. Oh, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
They came back and then the Bruins won in game 7.
Got it. Okay. My bad.
But regardless,
Jack going off on that.
Regardless, okay. The reality is the Toronto Maple Leafs do not have the makeup to come back down 3-1. They just don't. Like, what are we just going to see a miraculous? I mean, I don't think Austin Matthews has shown up and been a dominant player. Like, he had 1 game where he was dominant. They won, and that's been it. Okay, that's been it. And so if that's what you're going to continue to get from him, well, then $13.5 million is you're buying regular season records. That's the end of the story there.
Yeah. All right.
It's the end of the story.
Yeah, let's move on. The most boring game into the most exciting game yesterday. Vancouver Canucks, Nashville Predators.
Was it exciting until the end?
What?
It wasn't that great until the end.
No, that's what I'm saying. It was the most boring game until it was the most exciting game.
Okay, I get it. Okay.
Yeah, no, that game was boring as shit, I thought, up until the last 5 minutes. Nashville, in both games on home ice, Nashville did a great job shutting down Vancouver. I think they had less than 30. They had less than 30 shots on goal combined in the 2 games. I think they had 12 in game 3 and 16 yesterday in game 4.
71 total shots on goal through the series. It's the least amount of shots on goal through 4 games for any team, and they're up 3-1.
Yeah, and there was a goal in that game that I know you didn't like, a 2-on-1, Gustav Nyquist on Zadorov. I don't know if you still want to go over that because now that goal is kind of irrelevant, that Vancouver won the game. But is that something that you want to talk about or touch on really quick?
No, because it became an irrelevant goal.
Okay.
It just became an irrelevant goal. What did you think of Sheloff? What did you think of his performance?
I mean, he was solid for a guy that I had zero expectations of. And that's something too. Now Vancouver has won 3 games in this series, all 3 different goalies. but is Shelov's a guy you can rely on now? Like, just because he has one good game, and it's not even like he had the best game.
No, he was fine. He was just fine.
Yeah, he was fine.
fine.
But again,
I thought the goal from Jeremy Loiz, I can never say this kid's name right. Jeremy Lauzon. I thought that was soft, but then I guess that got tipped. And it wasn't actually Lauzon's goal. The one where there was like the little flyby screen in front. I believe it was Nashville's, was it their second goal of the game? They won the face-off. They went D to D. Lauzon moved in. Do you remember the goal that I'm talking about?
It was the third one, right?
I don't know if it was the second or the third goal. I was gonna I thought, oh, that's a softie because it hit him, but then I realized it got deflected. But still, my general rule of thumb for a goaltender is if the puck hits you, especially if it hits you in this area, you got to come up with it. So listen, the guy did what he needed to do. He made the saves when he needed to make the saves. And Vancouver, who again, they're not playing great. Their stars aren't playing great. JT Miller, I mean, he was the only guy that has shown up. He's their only
Brock Besser had a hat trick yesterday.
Well, he's their only big money guy that has. What does Besser make? 6-7 million?
I think 6 sounds right. Yeah.
So it's I'm talking about the big money, the 10, the double digiters, right? The guys like Hughes, Pedersen. I know Miller's up there. I know maybe he's not quite up there with those other two, but I don't know. I don't think Pedersen's reminds me of the way Mitch Marner's playing.
Yeah. You were saying yesterday, Pedersen's not a playoff guy. I'm just looking for Brock Besser. Yeah, he makes 6.65. JT Miller's making 8. So he's not even a double-digit guy. But this Vancouver team,
what's his contract situation, Miller? Is he getting ready to move into a bigger number? Or is that the number that he agreed upon? Got it.
That's the number he agreed upon.
Okay.
But this Vancouver team, so now they're going back on home ice. I actually think they have more pressure on them to close it out at home in game 5. Nashville's been the better team. I don't think anyone's disagreeing with that. I don't think this series is over at all. UC Saros hasn't been his best, but I think Nashville can easily take the next one, and then you never know coming back home game 6. I don't think this series is over. I think everyone's saying, now Vancouver's going back home. They're going to close it out. Nashville's probably so dejected. How could Colton Sisson sleep at night knowing he missed that empty netter and hit the post? I mean, that is tough, dude. Dead on post, right, probably 10 feet away from the net, and you hit the post to put the game away. This would have made it 4-2. Then Besser comes down and ties it. I mean, that is rough stuff. But poor guy.
What do you think of the way Quinn Hughes is playing?
Everyone says he looks like he's playing hurt, right? I think
he played 21 minutes when I checked last night. 21 minutes in a game where they were trailing the whole game, right? For the most part. So he barely
look at his reaction on the goal. Vic, can you rewind it for a second?
He barely even skates over to the goal. Maybe he was sick.
Watch Quinn Hughes in the middle of your screen on the far dot.
He can't even get over there.
Yeah.
So
I noticed that too. I was like, something's going on.
Something going on with him. Look, in a game where they're trailing in a playoff game, they need goals. For him to get 21-ish minutes, you think he'd be closer to 30 minutes. You really would. You think he would have been in a game like that, would have been 28, 29 minutes when they need a goal. So there's obviously something going on with him. Maybe he's sick. Maybe he's hurt. But
I think he's playing fine offensively.
Listen, when he has the puck, he can make plays, but you don't see when he's going back on pucks, when he fumbled that one puck at the blue line and then he had to turn back on it. He just doesn't look, he looks a little lifeless out there.
I wouldn't say lifeless is an unfair word. Ovechkin looked lifeless. Quinn Hughes, I don't think, looks lifeless. He's still effective and still impactful. He doesn't look like he did in the regular season, but I think, listen, it's his first real experience in big boy playoff hockey. He played in the bubble, sure, but this is the real deal. And this is the first time these guys are kind of going through it. At least, the Pedersens, Quinn Hughes, Besser, it's their first kick at the can here. So I don't know if,
and I see there's a bunch of people in the chat talking about how Hughes has been targeted by Nashville. Well, look,
yeah, no shit.
Hughes is going to be targeted no matter who they play. But again, being targeted and only getting 21-ish minutes of ice time in a game where you're trailing and you're the best offensive probably player on your team, it just something doesn't add up there. That's all I'm saying. And I'm not like, it's a fact that something doesn't add up there. Look at his ice time during the regular season. Look how much guys play in the third periods of playoff games when you're the offensive guy. And, like, look at how much Yossi plays in a third period, whether they're up or down a goal, but especially if they need a goal. He's on the ice every other shift. He plays half the period, right? So that's all I'm saying is things are just not adding up there.
Yeah, but I think also, you know what? Never mind. I was gonna say I think sometimes maybe coaches are spreading it out a little bit more. Like I know a lot, and I like I don't want to make this about the Rangers, but I know Laviolette has spread out their defensive ice time as well. Like,
Johnny,
I know.
Look at the decor in Vancouver.
I know.
Look at there's a big drop off between.
I kind of regretted it as soon as the thought went into my mind.
Who's going to win the Norris? Like when Adam Fox is playing at a level of severe domination, he plays 27 minutes. Especially if they need a goal. He's on the ice.
He hasn't even like touched 25 minutes.
But they haven't needed to. Look, that series is, we're going to move on to those guys.
Bowing out on that one
right now. But the question is, look, I think they get to Smith back potentially for the next game.
Do we even know what happened to him?
I don't know what happened to him.
Yeah,
no, I have no idea. So obviously he took that hit. Maybe it had to do with that hit.
Yeah, from McCarron.
But everybody thought they were screwed when they lost Demko. Now they lose to Smith, and now they're still up 3-1 going home. I don't see Nashville winning this series. I picked Vancouver to start. It's one of the only ones I got right. I'm happy I picked them. I'm staying with that. But you have to see more from Pettersson. It's like they're not going to win another round of the playoffs if this is what they're getting from Elias Pettersson. It's just he's forcing. How many times is he going to force that high tip play on the power play where he gets it on the half wall and he looks for that either bumper guy or the high tip play? Like, it's not there. It's just Nashville's doing a good job of taking that away. How many times are you going to force it before you just roll back around, get your feet moving, go down low, go back up high? It's just like, look, he's going to be feeling the heat if they don't win a Stanley Cup this year, which they're not, and he continues to play like this.
Yeah, and just to give Pettersson's stat line, 4 games played, just 2 assists. He's getting 19 minutes of ice time and is -3 with just 3 shots on goal. So, tough stat line for him. But do you want to get into the Rangers, the only team so far that has advanced to the second round? I know there was a specific debate you wanted to have about this one, and I know people were on Twitter last night about our Lafreniere-Ovechkin bet. Neither guy scores a goal, but I think Ovechkin not even getting a point, maybe points
from a semantic stand. Well, look, Loff had 3 secondary assists. His only primary assist was on an empty net goal. So before we celebrate his 4 points, but hey, points are points. You want to be a big time point getter in the NHL, even when you're quiet, which he was very quiet all series, Lafreniere. He's going to have to be better. I mean, because they're going to play a better team now, and he's going to have to play better. Because again, he makes that one play, I think, in game 1 on the forecheck. I barely noticed him the rest of the series. I really did.
No, you're right. You're right. I have no pushback on that.
But the question about that, so our bet. You bet me that Lafreniere would score more goals than Ovechkin, right? So I guess technically you lost the bet because you bet me he'd score more goals than Ovechkin, but he didn't. They tied. So I guess technically you lose that bet. Although we never put a monetary we never put a monetary value on it. But I can tell you this, New York Marine, because I know you're all about this whole charity thing. I did donate money yesterday to a GoFundMe for a kid to get a service dog that I saw on social media. They were trying to raise $30,000 so they could get their son, who is autistic, a service dog, and it came across my Instagram. I'm a big sucker for that kind of stuff. And so I did donate that yesterday, and I did think of you while I donated that. So let's talk about that series a little bit. But also, Biggie said,
just Biggie said, do we even need to talk about the Rangers? That was a free round. Like, we're not going to go so deep into it because
we're not going to go deep into it. But there are really 2 questions coming out of the series, maybe 3 questions that I have. Watching that series, do you feel like the New York Rangers are a legitimate cup contender? Now, they only trailed in the series for 3 minutes and 21 seconds, right? So they swept and they trailed for 3.5 minutes of an entire series. But what does the eye test tell you about the New York Rangers right now? And that's my question to you. Do you look at Vegas, Colorado, Florida, and do you think the Rangers are that level of good and a legitimate cup contender based on what you've seen so far through round one?
I think a lot of it has to do with the matchups as well. Like you can look at Colorado and how they're playing a very strong Winnipeg team. You can look at Florida and how they're playing against a Tampa Bay Lightning team. You can look at Dallas, at Vegas. Like those series are just way more intense. Not saying or not taking anything away from this Rangers Washington series. Like for what it was a pretty intense series. Like there were a lot of emotions, a lot of sparks flew. The Rangers needed moments where they needed guys to step up. Like it wasn't just some cakewalk. And I think most people, if they said the Rangers are going to sweep the Capitals, you'd probably say if they don't, there's something wrong. So I think the Rangers did what's expected of them. But I don't look at this and watch this and say, oh, just because they beat the Caps, and sure, there were times where they struggled, that means they're going to struggle with the next team or the next team. Like,
well, listen,
I
any
don't know.
team in the NHL.
Let me keep going. I look at Carolina. That series could easily be 3-1 Islanders with a couple bounces. Like Carolina has not convinced me at all that they're this crazy cup contender. And I think every sports book on the planet has them as the cup favorite, excuse me. And then you look at Edmonton, you know, their team again with cup aspirations. I think LA dominated them last night. Sure, they come away with the win, but all these teams that are playing against the quote unquote weaker opponents, like they haven't shown me convincingly that they're cup contenders as well. So I think when you watch, you know, the teams like Colorado, the teams like Vegas, the teams like Dallas, the teams like Florida, you know, these other big powerhouses in the NHL go up against more elite opponents, you're going to see their game elevate more. Like the Rangers that we see against probably Carolina, because I don't think the Islanders are coming back in that series, is going to be a much different team than you see against Washington. I think it all is game to game and matchup based when it comes to the playoffs. Like it's not really apples to apples kind of comparison. So the Rangers, they found ways to win. They swept. They got Zibanejad producing. They got Panarin producing. Vinny Trocheck is the heart and soul of the team right now, doing everything. Igor Shesterkin making a ton of saves. Adam Fox stepping up physically. Chris Kreider scored some big goals. The fourth line chipped in. Matt Rempe had more fucking goals than Alexander Ovechkin. Are you kidding me? And to me, that's all they needed to do. Good teams find a way to win in the playoffs. They got everyone shipping in, the power play, the PK. It's
you're going to get pushed back in every series. You could sweep a series, but you're still going to get pushed back. You're still going to have.
Am I wrong in saying that?
You're still going to have periods where you're back on your heels. I got no problem with the fact that there was a few, maybe like I can remember 2 periods in the series where the Rangers were a little bit on their heels, and
that LaPierre goal yesterday was brutal. But the guys are on the ice for a minute 40.
Yeah, look, all I'm asking here is I think I just don't know. Like I'm somebody who I have the Rangers beating Carolina in the next round. Okay,
Carolina actually doesn't concern me at all after watching.
I came into the playoffs thinking the Rangers could beat Carolina. Nothing I've seen has made me change my mind, and they still have Igor Shesterkin. I like the way, you know, that Bread started the series. I don't think he was as impactful the second half of the series. I think Trocheck kind of raised up his level, and that was good to see. But look, I think they're going to raise to the level when they get to Carolina. And I think it's the same question for Carolina. Are they going to raise to the next level when they get to the New York Rangers? And I think that's going to be a great series. I personally, I just don't think either of them are getting through Florida. I picked Tampa. I've seen enough. Even if Tampa wins today, wins again, I just think Florida's too deep. And I think depth is something, and speed that they probably maybe have on the Rangers. I don't think the Rangers have the foot speed to play with the Florida Panthers over a long series, but you got 2 great goaltenders that can steal games. But it should be a good series. That's what we know. It should be a good series. Here's my final question for you, and then we'll move on.
Yeah. I already know what it's going to be. Is this about Matt Rempe?
Let's just assume the Florida Panthers win the series. I mean, excuse me, the Carolina Hurricanes win the series, right?
Yeah.
You've got Carolina and the New York Rangers. Is Matt Rempe in your lineup for game 1 against the Carolina Hurricanes?
So for me, and I know you're gonna give me a little bit of shit here, but I'm not changing a winning lineup. They've won 4 straight games. What is that, Sloan? Sloan poking her head in. They've won 4 straight games. Everyone wanted to find a moment in the series where you could put blame on Rempe and be like, all right, he's got to come out. That didn't happen. Yesterday there were a couple moments. I think he fell once. He got pinned against the boards. But Rempe blocked shots. He chipped in. He was effective. Didn't get a ton of ice time. Against Carolina, a team that's that fast, a team that checks as tightly as they do. We spoke to Matt Barzal after the game 4 on Saturday, and Barzal said, one of the best skaters in the league. This is the tightest checking series I've ever played in. And, I think you need to put the fastest lineup that you possibly have
So do we
together.
see Hedl come in?
That to me is something interesting too.
Yeah.
And I think this extra week,
right.
is
days
huge
off
for him.
Yeah.
Huge for him. So
but as somebody who is a Rempe doubter for playoffs,
he's impressed.
I think that it's hard to take him out. So I think you probably you keep him in for game 1. But ultimately, I don't think this is a Rempe series.
I agree.
Because it's just you don't have Tom Wilson. You don't have Dylan McElrath.
Carolina's not that physical. They don't talk a lot of shit.
Is Carolina going to put Lemieux in the lineup just for Rempe? No, right? And so I just don't, you look at the size, okay, of the defense core of Carolina with Burns, with Chatfield, with Shea, with Slavin. Those are all guys that those are big men, right? You're not talking about a small skill group of defensemen. You're just talking about a big, beefy lineup of defensemen who can skate. So I do think that it's going to be hard to keep Rempe in this next series.
I agree.
And then you reassess. Okay, you see where you're at. You see what your injuries are like. But I think you need speed on your fourth line more than you need a guy like Rempe on your fourth line in the Carolina series.
So that's what I was going to say. And I think Charles Ferris actually just wrote in the chat. If it's Florida and Boston, I think he's in there. But Carolina, whole different story. And as a Rempe defender, I would have no problem with him coming out of the lineup. That said, we got to talk about this 18-2-1 record with him in. It's whether you think he has that much of an effect or not, it's pretty wild. And
Johnny, let me just ask you a question.
Yeah, I know.
Go look at every other stretch of the season other than their 11-11-7 stretch. The New York Rangers were in first place all year for a reason.
But this time of the year to have that 18-2-1, it's pretty damn impressive.
Saying he came into the lineup at a time when they were they're winning a lot of games with or without him. And look, one of those wins is against the New Jersey Devils where he played 1 second of ice time. He literally got kicked out off the drop, right? So I'm not buying that whole their record because of him. I'm not buying that at all.
No, of course.
What's their record with Artemi Panarin in the lineup or Adam Fox in the lineup? Or do you know what I mean? So I'm just saying, they went with the same lineup a lot down the stretch, and they won a lot of games down the stretch. So I just if you're gonna make that argument, you got to make that argument for a lot of the players in their on their lineup.
But the last thing I will say, I think Rempe can hold his own against Carolina. I'm not saying he's going to be a liability out there. I just think if you're going to compete with Carolina, they're probably.
What did Matt Barzal tell you? Didn't he tell you something interesting?
He was just saying it was the tightest check. It is the tightest checking series I've ever been a part of.
Did you tell Barzal that I don't think he's a franchise cornerstone?
No, I did not say that.
You should have told him.
It was in a podium press conference.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't one-on-one. Why would I also? Hey man, great game, nice goal. Vic says he knows. But you know what I mean? I think if there is a way to put Hedl back in the lineup, I think Rempe has to be the guy to come out. There's no argument against.
Where do you put Hedl?
You put him on the third line with Cooley and Kakko, I'd say, and just
then
move Wenberg down. Yeah, bump Wenberg down. I mean, you could maybe make the case to try him with Kreider and Zibanejad.
Do you put Hedl in the middle right away, or do you break him in on the wing with
I think you put him in the middle.
Got it. Okay.
He's fast. He skates well. Play him in his position. But let's move on.
Big E says Colby versus Barzal 1-1. Yeah, okay. I'll break both of my ankles and get whiplash on my neck.
Barzal, dude, he is fucking sick. He really is.
His skills are unbelievable. I agree.
I think, and this is obviously it's easier said than proven, but if Barzal was on a team like the Rangers,
okay, let's not go there because he's not. Let's not do this. Let's not do
All
this. Okay.
All right. Avalanche, Winnipeg, the West again.
I mean, that would be like saying, well, what if you put McDavid
I moved on.
with
I moved
McKinnon
on
and
from it.
Makar?
Now you're going back to it.
Like,
I moved on.
Okay.
I moved on. Does the West again run through Colorado? I'm starting to look stupid after I went against my gut here and went with the Jets in the first round. But this Colorado team, I mean, Cale Makar's goal yesterday, Georgiev coming up big. They fly. And Nichushkin's stepped up. This Colorado team's legit if Georgiev's going to play the way he has in the last 2 games. What the fuck is going on with Connor Hellebuyck? But look at this goal by Cale.
He's just not making those saves. I mean, this was the end.
That one's got to be stopped too, right?
He's got to make that save. It's a great individual play. And look, Makar knows when you can go left to right and then shoot back the other way, it's a difficult save for a goaltender. But if you're going to win the Vezina and be considered the best goalie in the NHL, you have to save that. You just do. I mean, that's not an acceptable goal to let in. They put Brossoit in for the 3rd period of that game. Colorado just, man, they're like a train. When they start rolling, it's hard to stop them. And right now, Georgiev is making timely saves, and he's given them enough to win. And you're letting in one, you're getting run support from this Colorado team. Look, I think after game 1, I think Colorado buckled down a little. I think Cale Makar actually, I think he probably felt a little bit of the heat after game 1 because he was a little bit all over the place. And I know he plays that way. But I think him and Taves, they did get Sammy Girard back. I don't think you can understate how important that is.
So much speed from him on the back end.
So you get Girard back. Caleb Jones comes out of the lineup, and now you kind of have Jack Johnson as your number 6, which is like a perfect number 6, right? I mean, it really is. And I know I made a lot of bad picks in the playoffs this year. Tampa is looking like it's going to be a bad pick. Dallas could be a bad pick. But the one pick that I was the only person that had at our DFO pick pool, I'm the only one who picked Colorado. I am the only one. I think, Matt Larkin picked Nashville in that Vancouver series. He was the only one. So, and Stephen Ellis was the only one who took Boston. So we're all looking stupid there. But look how we all took Dallas. Wow. Not one person took Vegas. But all I'm saying is that Colorado pick, like even after game 1, I felt pretty good about that pick. I really did. And they just look like the West runs through Colorado. You've been saying that for 4 months. Year. And then you bailed on them come playoff time, and now they're shoving it right up your ass.
I bailed on Georgiev. I didn't really bail on them. That's really what it was. I had no faith in Alexander Georgiev over Connor Hellebuyck. We're getting a lot of questions in the chat, though. Do you start Laurent Brossoit in game 5 if you're Winnipeg? I don't.
No.
You can't.
No.
You can't. You can't.
No. You've got an elimination game. You're starting your Vezina
at home too.
Vezina trophy winning goalie. Like that's just that's your only option.
Yeah.
Okay. Like that's not even a thought. That's why they got him out. They knew that game was done. Give him a little bit of a reset / refocus. That is an easy decision for Rick Bowness to make to keep him in the lineup. That's not a debatable topic. It's a reasonable question, but it's not a debatable topic.
Jeremiah, oh shocker, a Canadian company rode all the home teams. Daily Faceoff knows their demographic. Well, Colby and I are the Americans of the bunch, so we didn't have any Canadian bias. I think it's just how everyone felt kind of going in, right? Like it was hard to deny how well Winnipeg was on an 8-game heater going into the playoffs. Connor Hellebuyck was playing amazing. Like it's hard when you watch teams play. Like everyone talks about, you want to play the best hockey at the right time. Well, Winnipeg was the one team doing that, and maybe Dallas too. Those were probably the 2 teams leading into the playoffs that were like the no-brainer. These 2 teams are at their best right now. They look good to win the Stanley Cup, and those are the 2 teams that fell behind.
They were dominant down the stretch. But look, we're gonna get to Dallas Vegas in our Parasso playoff preview, so we'll leave that. Mm-hmm. I'll ask you this question, and then we'll move on quickly to the LA Edmonton before we move into the preview for tonight. Do you think Colorado closes it out here in 5, or do you think Winnipeg has a little bit of pushback and they bring it back to Colorado for game 6?
That game's not till tomorrow, I believe. Just double checking. That game is tomorrow night, but I think Winnipeg brings it back to Colorado for a game 6. I don't think they go out without a fight. They've been too good all year to go out like this and lose 4 straight games. Let's remember, it's not just losing in 5. They won game 1. It's losing 4 straight. So to me, I think Hellebuyck does have a response. I think he has to. You can't. What are his numbers? 5.22 goals against, 5.22 goals against average, and a .870, 870 save percentage. So
it's just funny to me. Everyone's like, this year's different for Winnipeg. This year's different, and it's been more of the same. Playoff Winnipeg
after that game 1 win, right?
Yeah. Kyle Connor. Look, Morrissey's played well. He's been good, but Connor hasn't done enough. Scheifele hasn't done enough. Lowry's been actually pretty good. Like, he plays such an honest game, but the big boys they haven't been quite big enough. Scary moment in that game when Nemesnikov takes that slap shot. I don't know. Some of you probably saw my tweet after your friend
put them all in cages.
Your writer friend was suggesting like time to put fish bowls and cages on. Look, first off, let me just make a couple points about that. I'm really sick of people who don't play the game thinking they know better for the people who do play the game. It's like, until you've been in those situations, like you get to have an opinion, and I'm fine with that. But I'm just letting you know that, like, just because you think something makes sense to you doesn't necessarily mean it actually does make sense. If players were to have cages and fish bowls, the chaos on the ice and the amount, there'd be more high hits, there'd be more high sticks, there would be,
I used to go at someone's face when they had a cage on.
You'd see guys laying down in front of the puck with their face. There'd be more block shots. It would bog the game down and make the game way worse. You actually have college coaches that are banding together, begging for the NCAA to allow players to wear half shields. Okay, because it actually makes the game cleaner. And then the other thing that someone said was to me on Twitter was, wouldn't players go to the net harder if they wore cages? No difference. Nobody is thinking about that. These guys are fucking warriors.
Yeah.
Okay. They're not.
I bet you what, Nemesnikov still won't think about it after when he comes back.
Exactly. It's like you go to the net, you play. You're not thinking about how your face is open when you're playing in a hockey game, but you need that openness for your vision. And again, you're cognizant because you want to make sure that you're not doing certain things because you are, but it will not help the game to put guys in cages or in fish bowls like you think it will. That was my point of responding to that tweet with, here we go. Somebody, and it wasn't even just him. Like, his tweet was fine. It really was. Like, he wasn't saying,
he wasn't even saying cages or bubbles.
No. And he probably thought I was being an asshole, which is fine. Maybe I'll send him a message and say, hey, this was actually less directed at you and more directed at what the replies are and will be, because people jump right in and they're like, oh yeah, 100%. These guys should be wearing cages. Like, how about you let the people that are actually doing it make the decisions for themselves? That's why there's an NHLPA. Okay. And that's why there's an NHL. And that's why they partner on all these types of decisions, because let me just tell you something. They know better what they need. It's them going out and putting it on the line.
And listen, I'll say just to that too, like, if you're playing men's league or beer league, like, it makes no sense for you to wear a half shield. Like, if you're not playing the NHL, like, put a cage on, put a bubble on, because why the hell would someone just playing
protect your face?
Protect your face. Like,
for sure.
These are fake. And my parents, my dad yells at me every time he sees.
But if you don't want to and you're an adult, well, then make that decision for yourself. We're not here to tell you what to do. You make your own decisions.
But also, we have one really interesting question, actually, before we get into our Parasso playoff preview for tonight. We haven't really been asked this before, so I kind of wanted to read this out. This is from Clyde, but with a Q instead of a C or a K. Personal question. What's it like growing up in the U.S. as a hockey player when the sport is much less popular than others? In Canada, hockey is clearly the sport, but it's interesting for U.S.-born players. And I have one response that I know you're going to love. Can I go first? Barry Melrose for me. Growing up, you wait for that 5 minutes on ESPN to hear hockey. Then you go to school. Nobody's talking about hockey. I mean, for me, I grew up in Syosset, Long Island. There was, one or two other legit hockey players. I'll give a shout out to one of my best friends, Corey Hoffman. At the time, we haven't been as close lately, but super close growing up. We'd go to school, we'd leave school, we'd drive to Jersey, we'd drive or take the train to Newark, we'd drive to Brooklyn. Like, your parents pick you up from school early and they have to bring you, an hour, 2 hours away for practice because no one in your area plays hockey. And it's so hard to find competitive hockey, around where you live. And Colby, you probably have the same thing growing up in Philly, but it's just weird when, all I did as a kid was watch playoff hockey, and then I had no one really to talk about it with in school the next day. Like, in Canada, that's probably not the case. The only time where hockey was really relevant when I was waking up in the morning and going to school was when the Rangers would play the Islanders or the Rangers play the Devils. And the next day in school, there's people wearing Island jerseys, Devil jerseys, Ranger jerseys. That was really it. And that's kind of why, that's where this show somewhat stemmed from, because, I also grew up an NBA fan, and every morning I'd wake up and turn on Get Up or First Take, and I'd hear Stephen A. Smith, Alan Hahn, Greenberg, all these guys talking basketball, talking football. There was never any fucking hockey talk. So Colby and I kind of wanted to be those guys where hockey fans can wake up in the morning and have some fresh takes to listen to instead of the NHL Network rerun that you watch 100 times. I would wake up, I'd have Reese's Puffs or Lucky Charms, and I go sit in the basement for 40 minutes. Mm-hmm. I'd watch ESPN, then I watch NHL Network, and I think it was Dave Reed always talked about those classic series. Do you remember those on NHL Network? They'd have the 1993 Patrick Division Finals, and they'd show all the games and the highlights and stuff. I used to watch that all the time as a kid, but I probably got a little off topic. But yes, growing up in the U.S. And going to school every day, you never really talked about hockey with your friends. So it was only in the locker rooms after school and that kind of stuff.
So I'm my experience a little bit different. I mean, I grew up in Villanova, PA. No hockey, no hockey team at Villanova or anything like that. But I grew up playing at a rink called Iceline, which is probably 30 minutes from where I grew up. There weren't a lot of rinks around me. There was Iceline, and then there was the stadium in Haverford. I saw someone who said nothing like a 2-hour drive to Red Bank on a Sunday or a Saturday, a 6 a.m. game. It's funny because that's Red Bank is 2 hours from where I live to you, Weinberg 85. But what I would say for me is my closest friends that I grew up with, two of probably my 3 or 4 best buddies that we started in kindergarten and we went all the way through, even though I kind of left in high school for hockey, but they're still my closest friends that I spend time with on the weekends. Now, 2 of them played hockey and came from hockey families. So we did a lot of street hockey. We played a lot of mini hockey. We 2 of my best friends that I was basically around every day, Monday to Friday, were hockey kids. Now, 2 of them also weren't, and so there was always a lot of conversations about the Eagles and the Phillies and the Sixers, whatever was going on in Philly. But I also grew up in the 90s in Philly when the Flyers had some good teams. They had Lindros, LeClaire, they had a lot of exciting things happening. My family had a pretty close proximity to the Snyders because my mom, grew up with the Snyder boys, with Jay and Craig. And so, we had sort of closer ties. I got to go hang out with Roger Nielsen when he was the coach of the Flyers. I'd go to Roger Nielsen's summer camps, rest in peace, such a great, great man. But I would go up to his camps in the summer up in Ontario, in Lindsay, Ontario. And the campers would all stay at dorms. And my brother and I got to stay at Roger's house, his cabin, because my dad and him became friends and their family treated us like family. And so even though I grew up in a very non-traditional hockey area, I was very much surrounded by hockey, and it was just hockey, hockey, hockey. It's literally all I thought about as a kid. I would sit in class and literally in my notebook, I would try to list the rosters of every NHL team. That's literally what I would do during class, all day, every day, if I was bored, and just see if I could. And at one point when I was probably in, I don't know, 5th, 6th, 7th grade, I probably could name 80% of the players on every roster. That's how obsessed I was with it. And then on the weekends, you'd go play games and you'd be with your hockey friends. You'd start doing, select teams when you were 10, 11 years old. I know that's a ridiculous thing to say because select so hockey for 10, 11 years old. But so even though I didn't grow up in the traditional hotbed, my dad was a big hockey fan. Flyers were on every night in my house. And so I feel like I lived in a hockey bubble. We played hockey, and my dad put a little rink in our basement. with sport court and boards and everything like that. And so my older brothers and my dad and my younger brother, even though he's a lot younger, I mean, it was like a war every night. We'd watch the Flyers, we'd play hockey. So I didn't ever probably realize like, oh, I didn't grow up in a hockey place. I think the only thing that was frustrating was in the summertime, there was just hard to find ice. There wasn't a lot of stick and puck or a lot of open skates or a lot of open hockey. That was always when I would be like, this sucks in the summertime. But during the winter, my dad had me with so many different, I'd power skate and practice and then skills work. Like he just had me so involved with hockey that I don't think I ever realized that like, I'm not in a hockey area traditionally. I didn't realize that till I was a lot older and I was already kind of gone.
Yeah. And I want to address just one comment in the, like Alex K said, I disagree. Sachem School District in Suffolk has a varsity hockey team. I'm not saying there wasn't hockey. I'm saying the conversations around hockey, like going to school the next day, like going to dinner with your family and having to ask the waiter or waitress to turn on the hockey game. Like that was something that it was never something that you just expected.
There's no hockey night in Canada where everybody gets around the TV like they do Monday Night Football.
Exactly. I'm not saying
Monday Night Football is like a family event for a lot of people. That's how Hockey Night in Canada was with Bob Cole for all those years. It was a family event. So I think that's a good question. I think that it's fair. And we're not saying there's no hockey. We're just saying, and now it's blown up. I mean,
we're saying the conversations around it.
Philadelphia area still isn't producing enough good players for as many players as they have. And that's a whole different question for maybe Glenn Heffern when he does come on, being he's the president of this district as well, on top of the USHL commissioner. But, I think that it's look, the NFL is the one here in Canada. Hockey is the one. They don't have the NFL. So, it's reasonable, but like I said, I give my parents and my family, we were such a hockey family that we took it all in, and it was just like all hockey all the time for our family.
But Colby, even to your point, the NHL here, people would say it sometimes could even be the 4, like NFL, NBA, MLB has kind of declined a bit, but for a long time, it was the 4, it was the last one being talked about. So, that was the world that the US I grew up in, where, it was NHL after NFL, NBA, MLB. Like that's all this conversation was. We're not saying there wasn't hockey on Long Island in Pennsylvania. It's just the conversation around it.
Just wasn't what it is now. Now it's crazy. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. So,
but
all right, let's
get into our Parasso playoff preview.
Okay, go ahead.
Well,
go ahead.
Okay, let's get into our Parasso playoff preview, presented by Parasso, the most complete choice for shaving and beard care, made in Italy since 1948. Parasso has been a staple of Italian culture and barbershops globally for 4 generations. So get 15% off at Parasso-USA.com with our promo code Hockey15. That's Hockey15 in all caps. My beard's, I actually got a lot of compliments this weekend on the beard. It's coming in pretty nice. But yeah, big thanks to Parasso, our lovely sponsor. And Colby, I mean, do you want to start with a question from the chat? Because we had another good one from Charles Ferris here. I don't know if you had something on your mind that you want to say quick.
Go ahead.
So Charles said, question: 6 current series with 3-1 leads. Carolina and Florida being up 3-0. That's not the case, though. They're both they were up 3-0, now 3-1. Do we see one team come back from 3-1? If so, which team? I have my answer.
What's your answer?
If there's one team coming back from 3-1 to me right now, it's the Nashville Predators. And I don't know if there's a better argument around it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think any of the 3-1 teams are going to come back. I really don't. I know you feel like potentially Tampa could win tonight.
Florida's so good.
I think Florida takes care of it on home ice. And again, I picked Tampa to win the series. So I'm just saying, based on what I've seen, I mean, I'm not surprised that they finally did find a way to score some goals. I mean, Steven Stamkos has just been, finding the back of the net, raising his game to another level. I think Kucherov still hasn't done enough in this series. I just don't. It certainly was inspiring to see Mikhail Sergachev back out on the ice.
Amazing.
Timeline recovery, unbelievable. I think people don't realize this, and I would apply this to Mark Stone as well. When you take regular healing guidelines, you can throw them out the window when you're talking about the most elite athletes in the entire world. There's a reason these guys are such physically gifted individuals. Part of that is the way they recover and could partially be the way they heal. But what you got to realize is they have access to machines and technology and information that, you just generally don't get if you're in the general population, right? They have certain sports scientists that work with these teams. They have hyperbaric chambers that they sleep in. They have light therapies that they use. They have supplements that they put into food and there's more resources because for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, this is all they do and they think about. So they just have access to more things and things you've probably never even heard of, and things that are not mainstream types of things. And so I think when you see these guys healing, so quickly and making these insane recoveries, you've got to keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, when I saw that video, also, like, to John Cooper's credit, I don't know if he did it purposely, but he totally underplayed the possibility of Sergachev coming back. I mean, I feel like 2 weeks ago, it was like, he's definitely out for round one. He most likely will be out for round two.
I think they would have liked to have waited another week, but they felt like, look, he's
Down
not going to get worse. Probably
a
situation where the doc said, look, he's 80%. He's 80%, and he's not going to hurt himself any worse. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so if that's the case, we'll take Sergachev at 80% over, Lilberg or Crozier or any of the quote unquote depth defensemen that the Tampa Bay Lightning are rolling with right now within their lineup. And so, look, he made plays. I think Sergachev at 80% or 70% is better than most of the defensemen that they have. I think it was a big emotional lift to have him. I think some players stepped up and made some big plays like Brandon Hagel did.
Yeah.
Look, I just have a hard time seeing them winning again in Florida tonight. I really do. I think that's a really difficult game to pick. I think that's I would love to see it. I would love to see Tampa go to 7. I root for 7 games in every series because 7 games means more hockey-related revenue, and that means more money in the players' pockets and less escrow. And that's what I root for.
At the Islander game at UBS Arena in the press box, it was a big conversation. Does Carolina purposely throw this one to get more revenue at a Game 5 home game? Like, that was don't
put it by their owner.
No, I know. It was pretty funny, though. I was like, oh, you know what? Actually, it makes sense, kind of. But, okay, so last thing on this. There's no chance in hell that John Cooper's job is in jeopardy if they don't win the series, right?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
Don't even make that a conversation.
John Cooper is probably eventually going to either do what Paul Maurice did and just say, look, I need to go for a new challenge.
Mm-hmm.
I just there's no way. I mean, he's playing with a depleted roster. He's still, probably the best overall coach in the NHL.
I don't even know if that was a conversation. That was something that Vic and I had talked about.
Yeah, no, that's not even a question. I think Keefe is gone if they lose. I think Brendan Shanahan's job is in big trouble if they lose. Obviously Spencer Carberry is okay. Obviously Nashville's coach is okay. Brunette. Like I don't foresee any other major coaching shakeups based on first round losses. I think LA probably goes out if they lose this series and at least does interviews and talks to people. I think that's a situation where you're looking at a potential new head coach, but I think Sheldon Keefe will be available ASAP. I think you can count on that. And again, I think you got to look at Brendan Shanahan because from what I understand, he's pretty involved in moves that they make. So I think he deserves to have some of this fall on his shoulders.
All right, well, let's go into the other big game tonight. Only 2 games to talk about tonight. And it is Dallas at Vegas. The road team has won every single game in this series. We said game 2 was the must win. Now your point is proven that Dallas is not out of this yet. What do you make of tonight's game?
Yeah, well, look, I appreciate you saying that because
also, I just want to say, Biggie just made me laugh. Sometimes I wake up in a cold sweat at night and I hear Johnny's voice talking about Parasso. I thought that was pretty funny. Sorry.
Will Rick Bowness come back? Will he be back in Winnipeg? Yeah, I think he will be back. But I mean, look, I think they'll look at that situation, but I think he'll at least have another year with that team. But look, the reason that I said to you that game 2 wasn't a must win when they're down 1-0 is because now you fast forward a week and it's 2-1, and now you still kind of feel like it's anybody's series. Dallas made a lot of changes to their transition in game 3. They got way more opportunities off the rush. They played a lot more north-south hockey. I felt like they played a little too much east-west, too many D-to-Ds, too many hinges. They were slowing the play down. When you slow the play down against Vegas, the way they defend around their net, it's really difficult. They protect the house. They've got the best mix of 6 defensemen, even 7 defensemen in the NHL, top to bottom. They're the deepest, let's say that. And when you do that east-west and you slow it down, you give those guys a chance to gap up, they're going to kill plays. And not to mention, Jack Eichel is like your best offensive and defensive forward, along with your other goal scorers like Marchessault and Carlson. I mean, these guys just commit to the other end of the puck. I didn't even say Stone's name. We know he's a 200-foot player. So I think that that's just why I said that wasn't a must-win game, because I just felt like 2-1, you're still okay, if you get it to 2-1. And that's why I wasn't ringing the alarm bells for Dallas. Now, I think Vegas is going to win this game tonight. I really do. I think Vegas will adjust. I don't think Vegas is going to lose 2 in a row. I think they've got too much character in that room and just too much experience to let themselves go down another game. I mean, they lose in overtime on a tricky little shot. Logan Thompson has been really good in the series, but I don't know. Like, I think
he went down early, but that is a fucking sick shot by Wyatt.
Yeah, I think Vegas wins tonight. What do you think?
I also like Vegas tonight too.
Yeah, you like Vegas. All right, well, good. That's going to be our Betway bet of the day. We agree on that. We're still running the same promotion from Betway. They are giving you a free $200 bet if you lose. It's up to $200. Excuse me. I know I kind of voiced that wrong this time. Use the QR code on our screen. Make sure you scan it. You create your account. That'll load you up to have the bonus reimbursement. Make your bets. It's your first one up to 200. If it doesn't hit, you'll automatically get reimbursed. You can take that. You can continue to play, bet on what's going on in the NHL. If you like basketball, jump on the NBA. Offers only available outside of Ontario. Please be responsible with the way you bet. Don't be like Jonny Lazarus and bet away all your rent money and lose. We like Vegas tonight to win. Money line, they're minus 105. So I guess that makes them the underdog in this game on home ice. Slight underdog, I guess you would say. But look, I do. I think Vegas gets this to 3-1. I think they've ultimately been the better team in the series. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people's brackets are going to be busted because I very much think Vegas is going to win this series.
I was telling Vic yesterday, I had like a 6-leg parlay, and Nashville money line was the only one that didn't hit.
Oh, and you were what, 3 seconds away from hitting that?
Dude, 2 minutes left. They're up 3-1. I was jumping up and down in my fucking living room, but I had the Rangers and Panarin to have a point too. So like, it wasn't a sure thing at the time, but man, I was texting Vic at like 1 a.m. last night. I was like, my Sunday scaries are at an all-time high right now. I could have had like 4K in the bank from that. I was so pissed.
TG in the chat said, what do you think the best way to attack Thompson for Dallas? Well, I don't think it's as much Thompson as I just think it's creating quality opportunity and sustained pressure offensively. And I think you look at the way Dallas has been so successful all year. A lot of their offense comes from the rush. You look at how good they are down the middle. You look at the way that they skate and the team speed that they have, and they just generate so much off the rush because as a defenseman, you end up back on your heels when they play north-south hockey, when their defensemen are getting it and going directly north up the ice. It's when Heiskanen kind of lollygags a little bit and maybe goes over to his partner, and then his partner kind of walks up, towards the left and then hinges the puck backward. And now all of a sudden you have this east-west thing going on. The forwards get a little too stationary in the neutral zone, and that gives Pietrangelo and McNabb and White Cloud and Hanifin the opportunity to really gap up, kill momentum, get back on pucks first, and then they're getting these easy, clean breakouts. So I think Dallas, the formula for them in game 3 was north-south, quick up. You did not see the east-west. And all of a sudden, they started generating off the rush. What does that do? That backs the defenseman off for Vegas. It gives you a little bit more breathing room when you enter the zone. And then Dallas has the guys to go to work. You know, Ropa Hintz is unbelievably talented below the goal line. And Johnston and, you know, Pavelski does his best work below the hash marks. And so I think that's the way you expose Vegas. And I don't think it's as much of a Logan Thompson thing as it's a sustained pressure and scoring opportunities from the high danger area. Too much perimeter in game 1 and 2, not enough from that high danger area.
Well, also one thing I wanted to add too, you know, what was the one thing we talked about with Dallas all year? The secondary scoring, right? They had scoring throughout their entire lineup. You look at their goal scorers right now, they haven't really gotten much of it. You know, Sagan hasn't scored one. Duchesne hasn't scored one. Jamie Benn hasn't scored. Jamie Benn might have one, actually. Jamie Benn has one, but Pavelski hasn't scored one. Rupe Hintz hasn't scored one. You know, their only goal scorers right now are Robertson has 2, Wyatt Johnson has 2, Miro Heiskanen 1, Marchment 1, Ben 1. Like, these are the guys that you count on to score. You need someone else to figure it out and chip one in here. You know, I think Dallas, when you look at teams in the NHL this year that had scoring throughout their entire lineup, what they finished with, they had 2 guys with north of 30 and like 6 guys with 20 plus. So you need someone here to step up on your third line. Maybe the fourth line chips in. Like, that is a big difference in this series too, is not getting scoring throughout the entire lineup, which we saw them do the whole year. That was just the one thing I wanted to add with that.
Yeah, it's true. You need secondary scoring. Look, if you get goals from your third and your fourth line, it's house money, right? It's gravy, because you expect your top 2 lines to provide offense and get you goals. So if you're able to continue to get goals, Florida's done it when they've been successful. That one game they had 2 goals from their fourth line. It makes all the difference in the world, because the big dogs are going to come through for you. So just that's the difference between 2-1 and 4-1 in a game, in a playoff game, is that depth scoring, or that, you know, that fourth line chipping in for a goal.
Yeah, 100%. And I was reading a comment that was pretty funny. Weinberg 85, Johnny's memorabilia behind him slowly disappears through the playoffs as he sells it off to offset his bets. I'm not as big of a degenerate as Colby makes me seem to be, I promise. But yeah, great show today, Colby. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up? I mean, we got a lot going on in these playoffs. I feel like everyone in the narrative is pretty annoying about how it's not entertaining. These series none of them are close, but every fucking game is fun to watch. To me, at least, I like yesterday's games. I thought they were all pretty exciting.
Listen, I understand it's fun to watch, and like, yeah, sure. Like when Colorado's building erupts for 5 goals and they're loud, it's deafeningly loud, and everybody's got the white towels and everything like that. Or sure, it's cool, but like, I'd rather see the Colorado Winnipeg game be 2-2 with 6 minutes to go in the third period, and I think that's what people are talking about. This is sort of the second year in a row.
Well, it's the NHL's fault for the schedule, because the fucking Oilers Kings game last night had that.
1-0. There have been those games. There have. The Florida series has had some of those games. But like, I think people are accustomed to lower scoring, tighter games in the playoffs. So when you constantly have 5-1, 4-1, 6-2 types of games in the playoffs, and then the other series, whether it's the Washington Rangers series, the Carolina Islanders series, they're not real exciting games, even though they're having exciting finishes, but they're not tension building games. And tension is what makes the NHL playoffs so special. Tension, atmosphere. Yes, it's been really physical. Look at all the hitting in the Toronto-Boston series. It's like a record amount of hits in a first round. They're killing each other. But I do think that is what people are talking about when they're saying that. And I happen to agree. I'm not saying I'm not entertained, but I'm just saying I'd rather be at a point where I am at home going, oh, or I'm like raising out of my seat or getting up off the couch. And you haven't had enough of that in the first round this year. So I agree with people who are saying that. And I think that there's validity to that. Okay. So
last question of the day, because the chat's been amazing today. So I want to give one more from the chat. And it's definitely premature here, but who asked it? Jay Miller, who's the early Conn Smythe? I got mine.
Well, who is it? Go ahead.
Pretty uncharacteristic of me, but I'm going to go with the goalie, and I'm saying Swayman, dude. .956 save percentage, 1.34 goals against. I mean, different series because of him, right? Like Toronto cannot find a way to score more than 2 goals against him in a game. Swayman, I wouldn't say he's stolen that series so far, but he's definitely been the most important piece on both sides. And I think without Swayman right now, that series might not be 3-1 Boston. And I know you could say that about a lot of guys, but I think he's just been the most impressive to me. You?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Swayman's is a really good pick, and I'm not going to make the same pick. What about Bob in Florida?
Yeah,
I mean, the saves that he's made in tight, and that's been a very tight series.
Numbers aren't as good though.
It's 3-1. But how about Brad Marchand? I mean, I think you could make an argument that he's been one of the most impactful players in the playoffs as well. And look, I think Makar has been unbelievably good at, and is doing his Makar level things.
Mm-hmm.
I think, you can kind of look around and look, the Vegas Dallas game they've only had 3 games. Like their series is still pretty young. So, McDavid is leading the way in points, but look, just to be honest, like I just haven't seen a full game because I fall asleep in those games. I make it through a period and a half or 2, and I'm falling asleep. So I think any of those names, I think what we should do is we're going to do power rankings this week. We're going to sort of reshuffle our power rankings. And then I think what we ought to do is we ought to do a
Conn Smythe ranking.
Like after the first round, when round 2 is set, let's put some predictions in, and then we'll constantly go back and revisit some of those predictions.
I like that.
I think that's what we should do, and see if our guys are still trending in the right direction. Look, I think you throw Jack Eichel into that conversation the way he's been
Matthew Tkachuk
for Vegas. Yeah, exactly. So
there's a lot.
Let's save that for the end of round 1, so we have a little bit more of a clear picture. But right now, there's definitely been some guys who have stepped up. And then on the other end, the Pedersons, the Marners, the Matthews, Tavares, like some guys that just leave you wanting more.
We need more graphic ideas for Vic. We know how much Vic loves making graphics. Right, Vicky? I didn't mean to call you Vicky. I'm sorry if you're going to yell at me about that. But great show today. Thank you to everyone in the chat. You guys were awesome for a Monday.
Let me give you this. Make sure you tune in today at noon to DFO Live. I'll be hosting that show with Carter Hutton today. Frank and Tyler are travel days because they're out covering different series. Make sure you like and subscribe. Liking our episodes help a lot. Definitely subscribe. That's big for us, especially as we continue to look for sponsorships and partnerships. That type of visibility only helps us continue to do things and grow the show. Next year, we'd love to do more live type of stuff. So it's a small thing that we ask. Go on our episodes, leave us a review, give us a rate on Spotify, podcasts, wherever you listen, YouTube, all that stuff goes a long way for us. So we appreciate that from all of you who are willing to help. Tune in at, like I said, noon today, DFO Live. Go ahead, Johnny. Last word.
I was just going to say also, if you're on the East Coast today, get outside because it's fucking beautiful out. I'm excited. I'm going to go for a walk, maybe a blade. But, this time of year, enjoy the sun, get outside, go enjoy the outdoors. I don't know if that was called for, but sometimes it's just nice to go outside. Am I being too soft?
You're an idiot. Say goodbye, Johnny.
Cody's going to text me after and be like, you're such a loser for saying
Say goodbye. Don't ruin a good show.
Thank you, guys. Hope you have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow at 9 a.m.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.